Hey, welcome back to another episode of Around the Table. We're so glad that you're here with us for another great conversation. It's going to be a great time together. If you're watching live on Facebook, hey. If you're watching on our YouTube videos later on or on our podcast, we're glad you're here with us. And my name's James. I'm our online director here at Highlands, and excited to have three awesome guests with us this week. First off, we have back for round two, Steve Robinson.
Glad to be back, man. Glad to be back. So good to come out for round two.
Steve was a guinea pig and went on round one. I mean, that's pretty. So I'm thankful for that. And he came back, which means it was pretty good, right?
Yes. I come back for more.
Good deal. Also, the two new people for the first time, Alex Wilson, our pastor of worship gatherings, worship leader
boss.
Extraordinaire.
Yo, boss. How we doing?
Hello.
Good to see y'all.
Glad to have Alex here. And then another first-time guest, Angel Coleman-Juarez, who is, I don't remember what your official title is, Angel.
Yeah, so I'm a communications coordinator, and I'm glad to be here.
There we go. Angel was an intern, and then she was a resident. And then last year, she came on full-time to work on our comms team, and she does a great job keeping all of us crazy people straight, which is
Yeah.
that's a feat in itself, which should be
It
applauded.
took an angel to do that.
There you go. There you go.
I'll be here all week.
That's right. Hey, let's just kind of go around the table. If you haven't watched before, we want to take some time each week for you guys to hear from our staff, from our campus pastors, from some of our teaching team, from some of our staff people at Highlands, to connect with us, to give an honest look into how things are going in our life. We're going to dig into the message a little bit, which this week was very good, all about taming your tongue. Oh, ouch, it hurt. And do some Q&A too. So it's going to be good. But hey, let's start with just kind of going around. We'll start with you, Steve. How are things going in your life in this kind of weird moment that we're in? How are you doing?
I compared to the first episode, much better this time, I believe. I think we're even getting, probably all of us getting a little bit better used to some of this new normal stuff, even though it's so kind of crazy. It's getting better. It's like we're getting some better groundwork, doing some ministry, outreach, different things, done some today. So, I'm excited about, always being around people. Anytime I get around people, I like people. So when that gets drawn away from me, it gets shaken up. The kids are getting ready to wrap up school here in less than 2 weeks now. So that's going to take some of that. Heather, my wife's still full force at the hospital doing all her stuff, and at least it hasn't went crazy in this area. So that's kind of been good for us and home front. And we've got to spend a lot of family time. If you can keep out of the phones and the iPads and stuff like that, we have some good moments.
Yeah. Yeah, kids, man, they're good at using tablets and stuff for sure. They can rock those. Yeah, man, kids at home. That's been a thing for me for sure. Is taking care of them, trying to do school with them, give them work to do. They finish it way too fast. I got to get creative. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's a new normal for sure. That first week, things were still just like crazy.
It was,
and
yes.
We're developing a little bit of a system,
Yes.
I hope so.
Yes.
So, Alex, how about you? How are you doing?
Yeah, doing well. Staying. I think I heard you or somebody say one of the earlier weeks. For a lot of people, this has been a change of pace for the slower. For me and for many of us, it's been a ramp up of pace. There's been a lot to do. And there's just been, we want to check on everybody. We want to see how people are doing. We want to keep up with folks. And digital has kind of made that more challenging, more time consuming in many ways. So it's been fun to work on a lot of audio projects and music projects, and in addition to just keeping up with people. But it's a different season, right? And I think I heard one time that it takes 6 weeks to adjust to any new normal when you have a traumatic event in your life. And so we're kind of in that zone, in that 6 week kind of zone. So I think I resonate with what Steve said, is that we are kind of settling into a new normal for now. And, I think who knows what 6 weeks from now, what that normal will be again. So it's a stressful time in that capacity where you don't really know what the future holds. But man, it's been good to develop some new rhythms and some and kind of lean on some of those old rhythms that have been super helpful to me in the past. Revisit those and let those kind of breathe life into me in this season.
Yeah, that's good. Angel, what about you? You're in a sort of different space than the three of us for sure. So how's this been for you?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's gotten a lot busier because I'm in communications, which we've switched a lot of our stuff to more online, like services and whatnot. And I also help with social media with HF kids and HF students. So my workload has like doubled. So it's been really good and exciting just to create new content daily to encourage and inspire people. But it's also been really challenging. But it's been good, busy, but really good.
Yeah, I mean, doing all that online, communicating that in some ways is easier, in some ways is harder. There's a lot of moving pieces, whereas a lot of what we were doing is very weekend focused. Now it's just like, it's everywhere and they're all interconnected and it's a lot. So, if you're out there in any digital communication, social media world, you are busy right now. Mm-hmm. And, hey, that's good though, right? Better to be busy than not busy.
Exactly. Yeah. It's kept me, busy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, when you're working and doing that, you're not thinking about some of the other stuff, and that's okay. It's a good break for your brain. Hey, let's jump in a little bit and just spend some time talking through the message from last weekend. We're in a series called Faith in the Fire. We're about a little more than halfway done with that. And this message was on James chapter 3, and I think Alan called it basically managing your mouth, which is fun, but really talks about how, the things that we say, our tongue, James uses that language a lot, has a lot of power in our lives. And let's just kind of go back and forth maybe and share just some things that stuck out to you in this message, something that really hit you. Let's go to Alex first. What's something maybe that stuck out to you from this message?
Yeah, just the power of a word, man, that can be, this one got so practical for me really fast. And once again, we consider our words carefully. We want to say the right things. We want to breathe life into those around us. And I think for me, in times of stress, in times of anxiety, who hasn't experienced that a little bit recently? In those seasons, in those times, in those moments, even in a day when I'm just tired and man, I've had a long day. It's easy to lose the control of that tongue, right? And speak a word that is harsh, or speak a word to that is not exactly what you meant. And so just out of that tiredness or that, that stress, it's really speaking out of that place. And so there's consequences there, right? It can damage your relationships. It can damage your family. It can hurt people. And that's the last thing that we ever want to do. That's why it's so important to tame your tongue and to really pay attention to that. So that jumped out at me, and too, when Pastor Allen was talking about how that it reveals your heart and your true heart. It's like, oof, when those things come out of me that don't look like what Jesus looks like, I'm like, man, I need to check my heart. I need to check myself, because that's not at all what I intended to say. That's not at all what I intended for my family or my friend, anybody else to receive. That's not really truly the way I want to represent Jesus, and that's not truly who I mean, I feel like, no, that's not. You can't take it back though, right? It's already out there. Damage is already done.
That's so true. How many times do you say something and you're like, I really wish I could just rewind and pull that back. It makes me think about this verse here, James 3:5, which says, consider that a great forest is set on fire by a small spark, and this tongue is also a fire. Alan used the example of the fires in Gatlinburg a couple years ago, which really started from literally a few people just like burning something right in the woods and set fire to a forest, and how much of what we say has that power, right? And with, when you think about this, in personal relationships, but also like social media, and we have sort of this megaphone to the world. You hear stories about people who, tweet something and they get fired, right? I remember there was one several years ago. I can't remember her name now, but she was going on a trip, and she was getting on the plane and said something very terrible about going to Africa, and something about how she wasn't going to get HIV because she was white. And by the time she landed there, she had lost her job, was trending on Twitter, and the world hated her, right? Wow. And she had turned off her phone and had no idea. That small thing that she said, which was not a good idea, right? It was a very stupid thing to say, but she probably didn't actually believe that, right? But man, it was not a good thing to say, and she was out of the country, and her life got turned upside down from one tweet, and it really just every time I think about that story, when I read that verse, I think about that story, because it's like, you say something, you set it in motion, and now you're no longer in control of what happens, right? That thing just builds and it just snowballs. And that's so true with our own lives. When we say something, you can't take it back, and you can't control that narrative, right? We like to control things, we like to be in charge, but when you put something out into the world, that's it. It's there, it's there for all to see. Good stuff. Angel, what about you? What's some things maybe that stood out in this message for you?
Yeah, I think that really stood out to me too. Just that, my tongue displays who I am and reveals my character and my heart at the time. A perfect example of what you were talking about is, I actually am in a few texting groups, and I said something that I shouldn't have said last week. I was having a conversation with a few people about working, and then, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. And about working, and I've been working probably twice as much, just because this season is super busy for me. And one of the people in the group was like, well, I don't know what that's like. And I said, without thinking, because they were kind of saying how bored they were, and I said, well, if you're bored, why don't you get a job at a grocery store? And I didn't think. I just said it, and I immediately regretted it. Yeah. So it's easy to say stuff like that without thinking.
Yeah, that's a great example of that. Thanks for being honest too, and I think we all find ourselves in those moments of shouldn't have said that, right? Especially, and really that shows up with our friends too, and people that know us the best, especially, and I can tell when my wife is mad at me over text messages, because I can tell, and when I'm mad at her too, she's like, what's wrong? It's like, yeah. What? Well, nothing. Why? And she's like, oh, because you said, K instead of okay. It's like, that is true. I do that. Everybody has sort of those tells, right, in your life. And the difficult part is we end up hurting the people that are closest to us with our words, and a lot of times. So, yeah. Steve, what do you got?
I kid you not. Last night, my daughter and wife was talking about the K or the OK. I kid you not.
Hey, it's real, and
it's real.
Every time I fight back, I'm like, no, I wasn't upset. I was like, I was, I really was. It's funny how language works, and how people. But man, even in the medium that feels so flat, right? Yeah. Of it's just text, it's just information. You can't read inflection. Yes. It's like, oh, you can, you
put it in there. Yes. I think the timing of this message is just great for the season we're in. Because again, when it comes to spouses and my daughters and all of us and our feeling of this new normal, our language can be short fused. I think we get into moments, and when you start talking about my tongue can destroy what I have in a heartbeat. You can spend months, you can spend years in a relationship and marriage and all these different things, building all these relationships, these friendships, and in a matter of seconds, shredded by what comes out of our mouth. And I think right now, because of our tension and stuff we're going through in these moments, it don't take a lot. A little bit of wind blowing a different direction, and you can sit there, and I've caught myself so many times. I'm trying to do something other, and I'm, even though I'm good, I'm still on the edge of my new normal. So when someone pushes it just a little direction, I get tense, and then stuff can fly out of my mouth. And I was sitting there reading out of Matthew, and one of the verses, it's like, oh gosh, I don't want to be this. Or the second part of it, I don't. It's Matthew 12:35. A good person produces good words from a good heart, and an evil person produces evil words from an evil heart. And I was like, well, gosh, I don't want to have an evil heart. I want my heart to be good. I want it to be pure. I want it to have all those things. Because it all comes, just like Alex was talking about, it all comes back to our heart. All that stuff does. And if our heart is good, if our soul is good, and when we're making that connection with God and building that relationship, it's going good, even the tension around us is going to be okay. But man, if it's not, some junk's going to come out. And it's going to come out in us.
You know, there's so many things about our life that we can hide from people, right? Mm-hmm. You can hide how much money you have. You can hide, like, you know, your status and all these things, and you can project those, you know, whatever you want to be, right? But at the end of the day, like, what you think, how you feel inside of you, right, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. Like, you're going to say it. And, you know, you can hold it back for a while, but eventually, you know, if you're not in a good place, like, you're going to unload on somebody. And it's just a reality. And all of us have done that. And, you know, that's just part of being alive, right? And James even says that. Where's that verse I was looking for? Basically, it was like, there we go. James 3:7-8. So all kinds of animals have been tamed by man, but no one can tame the tongue. It's a restless evil full of deadly poison. Yes. It's like, tell me how you really feel about that. So what do we do about that, right? I think we've all kind of gone around here and agreed and added in on this idea that, hey, out of our heart, our mouth speaks. It's hard to control our tongue. It's easy to jump in and say something. We need help with that. So what have you guys found that's been a help in that, making that shift from, whether it's recognizing it and trying to, like, return to a better place, or just working on that personally? What have you guys found, maybe in a practical way, that is helpful to do that?
Yeah, I'll speak into that just a little bit. And first of all, I'll give you maybe a don't do this. This is not what you should do. And I am and not that we need to go deep into Enneagram study right now, but I'm an Enneagram 1.
Me too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So part of something I know about myself through studying my Enneagram number is that my tendency is to bury and let it fester until I just explode. And so, you know, I don't want to, that's something that in my heart, in my mind, I have to check myself on when I start to feel that rising, let's mitigate the explosion, and, you know, let's let it out a little bit at a time, or choose really what's the right things to say. Okay. What do I really need to, what's really actually going on here in my heart? And what's a positive way that I can express that to those around me? If there's something going on that's bothering me or frustrating me or angering me, let's not let it get so bad to where I just have to unload on somebody, right? And that's relational, right? It all comes back to relationship. You don't want to unload on somebody. You want to, if there's an issue between me and my brother or my sister, I want to sit down and have a conversation. Hey, this really hurt me, or this is the way I feel about this. Help me understand your perspective, and let's talk about that, you know. And so, in a way, don't let yourself just build up to explode. Identify those key things that are important, and have conversations. And one other thing that I would just suggest as well is that timing is important in these things as well. Sometimes if something happens that rubs you the wrong way, you want to just right in that moment, go ahead and hit it and say, well, why'd you do that for? Well, that bothered me, or that whatever. And sometimes that's not the most healthy thing, because tensions can be high. And so take a deep breath and let's wait for just a minute, and then choose a time when it's like, okay, we can talk about this and we can have a back and forth conversation, instead of I'm going to jab at you real fast with a word that could be hurtful, and instead of taking positive ground together in a relationship. So yeah, there's a few things for you.
That's good. Angel, what do you think?
Yeah. So I think that's, like, I'm an Enneagram 1 too, and I get angry a lot. That's something I struggle with. And I think I've been learning just to step aside and calm down and not act on those emotions, but just process them first instead of acting on them. And, like, being a Christ follower, it is a continual process. Like, you can't, like, a Billy Graham quote I really like is, being a Christian is more than an instantaneous conversion. Like, it is a daily process where you grow and grow and you become more like Christ. You have to continually, like, seek him. And I'm really hard on myself. So sometimes I need to stop and think about my anger and process that, and then, ask God for help with that, but also be forgiving and be thankful that God gives us grace and forgiveness.
Yeah, that's great. I love that quote, and that's that idea of sanctification, right? That we are saved, but that we're being saved as well. That God is continuing to make us new and to make us like him. Yeah, and it's easy to think like, well, if you love God, you shouldn't struggle with this. And it's like, well, that's not true, right? That's definitely not true. For me, like, I'm an Enneagram 3, and so my struggle with all that is just wanting to run away from all of it completely, right? Like, I don't want to hold on to it. I don't ever want to talk about it again. I just want to, like, pretend that didn't happen and just, like, move on. And so for me, one thing, like, with dealing with, like, emotions and stuff, there are some people that are very, like, quick and they, like, have to deal with stuff immediately. And then there are people like me who are like, I never want to deal with this. And so I've had to learn that I can't just run away from something. And so if I need to have a conversation with somebody, I need to say, hey, I need to share something with you. Is now a good time to do that, and to help myself be accountable for that. Because that my tendency is to not think about it. It really is to just eject from the conversation. Just like, I gotta go, and let's never speak of that again.
Once it's out there, you have to proceed, right? You can't just not.
Yeah.
But that tough part of hey, do I have permission to talk about a thing with you? That could be helpful for somebody who's really a conflict avoider, who just doesn't want to, who just wants to move on, right?
So yeah, for anybody who is friends with or is in a relationship with, if your spouse or significant other is like me and avoids conflict, here is a tip, and that is, I learned this in counseling when we went to marriage counseling. Everyone should go to counseling. Was that if Cami needed to talk to me about something, that she would say, hey, I need to talk to you about something. Is now a good time? And in that moment, I have the chance to say yes or no. But if I say no, I have to give her a time. So I can't just say no, we'll talk about it later, because later's not a time, right? It's like, no, can we talk about that tonight at 9:00 or so, and that helps me too, because I get to process those things for that conversation, right? Or maybe I need to apologize for something, or maybe it's just that we need to talk about something. Like, I'm avoidant of those things. And so, Yeah, that's a freebie there. If anybody in your life is avoidant of conflict, it will help them to not overwhelm them by just jumping into it, but to offer them that opportunity. But then don't let them out, because we will try to weasel our way out for sure. Oh, that's good.
As I hear you talking, and I'm thinking about the different ways, and sometimes we respond in those moments. It reminded me, there was a couple of scriptures that Alan didn't necessarily mention that really reminded me of the power of a word. And as I hear you talking, I'm thinking about there's not only power in words, but there's also responsibility there too. You know, each of us has a responsibility and the privilege to speak words, right, and to communicate with others. But I was thinking about the power of a word, and God sets this up from the beginning in Genesis 1:1. You know, in the beginning, there's nothing, and God literally speaks, and created stuff, right? And that's pretty incredible. And then you see at the end of the Bible in Revelation, I think it's Revelation 19. There's this picture of Jesus riding on a white horse, and it calls him the King of Kings. And he has a sword, but the sword's not in his hand. The sword's coming out of his mouth, right? And this is the power of a word, the power of the tongue. In John 1, it says, you know, Jesus was the Word. He was there in the beginning he's the Word, right? And so I think God set this up and created us to be people who have this power with our mouths, and it's also a responsibility. God created stuff with his mouth, with his word, and we have the ability to create and to make action happen with what we say. You know, I mean, if you say something to someone you're in a relationship with, most of the time that's going to have some kind of an action, some kind of a reaction. It's going to set something into trajectory. You're going to be building or destroying relationship with that. And so there's a power and a responsibility that we have with our words. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. There's no neutral, right?
Yeah.
There's no neutral word. As much as we like to think, oh, it's no big deal, right? In some way, it's either building or it's taking away. So, you know, how do we encourage ourselves and each other to speak life? I think, you know, Alan ended this message kind of by saying that verse in James 1:19, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. I think that the placement of those words is interesting, right? Because you think like, well, just don't be angry with people. And it's like, well, how would you do that? Well, maybe if you were quicker to listen and slower to speak, then like that slow to be like that's the result of that, which is probably true for most of us. If we're quicker to listen to others, if we're slower to maybe speak ourselves, we're going to find ourselves being less angry if we can do that. So. Yeah, it's good stuff.
That's why we have 2 ears in one mouth.
Amen to that.
Right. That's right. Just imagine if we had two mouths. That'd be so insane.
Sometimes I think I have it.
Yeah, that's right. It moves so fast on its own.
Yeah.
Hey, let's move into a little bit of kind of a Q&A kind of section here. We'd love to know if you'd like to ask us a question. Here's a couple ways you can do that. You can text us. You can text the word questions to, let me pull this up so I don't get it wrong, 276-451-2621. Text the word questions to that number, or you can just go to hf.church/questions and ask a question. You guys have asked some really great questions, and today I just want to do something a little bit different in this time, and that is just kind of take a personal moment with each of you and ask you, hey, what's something? It could be very spiritual, or it could be not uber spiritual at all. That's okay. Something that is helping you get through this time. You know, I think we're all doing better than we were 4 or 5 weeks ago, hopefully. But man, if I'm honest, especially maybe like a week or so ago, like I wasn't sleeping very good. I was really just like, you know, I was in that adjustment phase of really kind of not giving in to this new normal, and my body was just fighting it, and it was a struggle. And so I'd love to know, you know, just practically, what are some things that have been helpful for you guys? What are some things maybe you could offer to people who are listening to this? Something that's practical, fun, useful, helpful in this time that's been good for you.
I'll jump off. Probably the initial thing that kind of got me connected, and probably I almost got to the point in the first couple of weeks where it almost paralyzed me. Almost trying to put everything on pause in life and everything else, and didn't know exactly challenging. Hey, what's your calling? What's your purpose? What's your drive? Everything else, and then I had to kind of capture that again. Like none of that has changed. My calling, my purpose, my drive, what God has called me to do, none of that changed, Stevie. Just the way you do it, the actions is going to be different. So it almost had to kind of like do a different wake up call for me and say, okay, if I already have my same mission, my mission has never changed, then my strategy just needs to change to meet that. So here over the last few weeks, we just had to adjust our strategy. One of the things I truly love is a small group. I have a small group, a circle. We do it just like this on Zoom. We do it on Friday nights. We'll be right there with my crew, and actually we're meeting more consistently. I think because the commitment might not, it's, roughly 40 minutes. We're sitting there and everybody can do that. They don't have to clean their house. They can eat while they're sitting there. The kids don't have to something special. It's honestly probably been a little easier for us all to get together, but that crew's been taking place. Quiet time, trying to have a quiet time. I fight for that one. I mean, I stalled out there for a couple of weeks. I really did. I got in my own little circle. And once I got back to in his word and all, and understanding that power and the heart and everything else, not so much even from the message. We talked a lot of, the power of the tongue and how it can tear down everything. Man, the power can build up. It can sit there and say, move the mountains, Jesus said, and it'll move the mountain. I mean, that's the power in his words and when I got into that and got back in that drive, outreach, I want to stay plugged into outreach. Just doing something for somebody. And everybody can do that. I mean, you all have neighbors. I mean, have you just done anything simple for your neighbor? Or just to say hi, just check on them. I mean, we all can do that. And when I do all those little small things, I'm better. I'm a better person because I'm doing what God's told me to do. He's given me a mission to share his name, to share his gospel, share his life. And when I do those things, even all those little small acts of kindness and hope and challenges, I am better. Because I'm not paralyzed anymore, but I'm actually on that move. So that's kind of the things I've been working through in my own walk.
That's good. Yeah, it's good stuff for sure. Angel, what about you? What's something that's been good for you?
Yeah, that's really good. I feel like I've kind of the same thing. I've been trying to do little things throughout the day, like in the morning to be like, okay, what am I grateful for? Instead of being pessimistic about this whole situation. But, asking myself, well, what am I grateful for? And then, reflecting on those throughout the day. Also, like sending people encouragement, like just a text message or anything that has been, so putting the focus off of me on, focusing more on other people because I live alone. So I have been stuck at home a lot with myself. So just going out of my way to encourage other people throughout the day. And it's small things, not anything big. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
That's good. I love that idea of gratitude every day in the morning. Like, it's so easy to be like, oh, I got to do all this stuff and there's this thing. And, there's so much that we can't control, but we can totally control our gratitude. Yeah. And saying that or writing it down or, graphing that in a way so you can look back and see that. That's good. Mm-hmm. All right. A. Wilson, what you got?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. Well, one is that I mentioned earlier in the conversation just some practices that I've kind of gone back to or made more important in my life, and I would say one of those is jogging, running. That is something that just is so huge for me to maintain a positive and healthy just lifestyle, and it releases endorphins and all kinds of medical things that I couldn't even tell you exactly what happens, but I just know it's good, right? And it helps. So and finding your exercise groove or whatever that might be for you, man, that has been huge for me personally. And then kind of what both Angel and Steve have talked about is that the happiest people are people who are giving to others, who are serving others. And so the more I sit and just think about me and, oh, woe is me, the worse my mindset becomes. And the more I think about, well, man, how could I reach out to somebody else? The more that improves just my general lifestyle and my well-being. And then I go back to spiritual disciplines, and that's a big scary thing for some of us. And you may not know anything about spiritual disciplines, and that's totally okay. But maybe this is a time when you could kind of look into some of those and just kind of investigate, learn, and what is prayer, what is meditation, what is fasting, what is worship, what is celebration and joy, and some of those things. What are some of those spiritual disciplines? So I'd encourage you to kind of look into some of those and really practice those in whatever way you possibly can. And one of those for me has been music. I'd love to share a song with you. I've got my guitar and a microphone set up.
Let's do it.
Okay. If you give me just a second.
All right. We'll let Alex get set up and get ready. Always glad to get some music in here. Trying new things on around. You never know what you're going to get on around the table, right? Never even know. So this song,
go for it. The song is called "You Are With Me." It's a song that I wrote with a couple of friends. It's crazy. I didn't write it in this season. I wrote it a couple years ago. One of our interns, Ashley, and a good friend, Josh Barker, who's an incredible songwriter. And we were just sitting in the green room in Abingdon one day and just seeking after the Lord. And this is what came out. And the lyrics at the beginning, it says, "I choose joy in every moment." And this is literally out of James 1. It's what we were considering, that scripture. So I choose joy. That's my response that I choose in every moment, even when my world is caving in. All that's happening around me won't determine how I'm going to live. And it says, even in the valley, I'm not alone, not for a moment. Even in the dark, you call me home in every moment. And so, So I'll play just a little bit for you. I choose joy in every moment. Even when my world is caving in. And all that's happening around me won't determine how I'm gonna live. Even in the valley, I'm not alone. Not for a moment. Even in the dark, you call me home. In every moment, you are good, and I believe that you are with me, and you are faithful. I can see that you are with me now. You have renewed my strength again and again, and you are good, and I believe that you are with me. Yeah.
Very nice.
Good stuff.
I like that song. It's a good one. And a great reminder in this season. I love how, songs and things that we write and produce months, ahead of this can speak into those seasons. You could have written that last week, right? And it would have been
Totally.
so fitting, but instead it was, over a year ago. And I love that, that God can use those things and speak through it. So, man, good stuff. Hey, anything kind of as we wrap up you want to add or throw in there? Now's your chance to say it.
It's called for quiet.
Hey,
One passage of scripture.
yeah, go
Here
for
it
it.
is. This is out of 1 Peter 3, and I think James must have told him what to say. In verse 10, the scripture says this: "If you want a happy life, don't we all, in good days, keep your tongue from speaking evil and keep your lips from telling lies." Amen.
That's a perfectly concise way to end that. I love that. That's
Yeah.
good. Hey, thank you guys for watching tonight. I hope this was a great experience for you. You got to hear some personal stories. You got to hear some music. You never know what you're going to get on Around the Table. Let me thank everybody for being here. Steve, thank you so much.
Oh, yes. Thanks for having me again.
You're back for round two.
Round
We'll
two.
have you back again. You're on track to becoming our most, right now you're winning, right?
Yes.
Boom.
We'll keep a tally. Alex, thank you so much for being here as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.
Awesome. And Angel, thank you so much for being on here too. Great stuff.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, and thank you all for watching. Again, we'd love to hear your questions. And hey, if you don't sing questions, we'll just sing songs and do whatever we want to, because we're just doing it, right? One day we'll sit around like one table together, maybe. There's a great table that I'm thinking about that we could use for this. But until then, we'll just meet around Zoom, just like you are. Hey, stay connected with people. Don't try to do this alone. We're in this together. Connect with your group, connect with your circle, connect with your friends. Just call somebody and talk to them. And if you need something, please do reach out to us. Know that we're here for you. Not just on a Sunday or a Wednesday or whatever day it is, a Thursday. We're here for you every day, in any way that we can. So please reach out. And hey, thanks for watching this week. And we'll see you next time for another episode of Around the Table. See you later.
See you, everybody.
See y'all.
Bye.